Marriage or mortgage? Should you buy a home before getting married or should you wait until after? Hey honeybees, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, my name is CIARA and I'm a full-time mortgage loan officer and content creator. I have helped thousands of people to buy homes and build wealth, so I take everything that I know and I share it with you in hopes you guys will build wealth also. I love showing you behind the scenes of what it's like to be a LO, full-time, and a content creator and a wife. So if you love my content, please make sure to subscribe. One topic that I have wanted to talk about and that surprisingly I haven't is marriage or mortgage. Should you buy a home before getting married or should you wait until after? As a woman, my philosophy was that I wanted to wait until I got married so my husband can buy me a house, we can move in together and live happily ever after. And that was my thinking until I became a loan officer. So I want to talk about that in this video, give you a little bit of my perspective as a lender and also as a home buyer, and also someone who was recently married and we're navigating all the real estate stuff together. So if you're someone who has always kind of wondered about this, then you'll definitely want to keep watching. So why should you even listen to me? Well, I am a mortgage loan officer and I do that full time. I've done it for 7 years. Before then I worked in finance, academia, neuroscience research, so I have a breadth of knowledge to draw from. I'm also a homeowner and a real estate investor, as well as my husband, and I also recently got married almost 2 years ago. So I feel like I have some perspective on this that I can share with you guys. Before I got married, I thought that I wanted to wait until I got married so my husband could buy me a house and we move in together and live happily ever after. And my view completely changed. I did end up buying a house a few years ago. I built a house from the ground up and I lived in it for 2 years. And I very recently last year converted it into a rental property. I have a property management company that manages everything for me so I can focus on the things that I need to do. I actually met my husband the day I passed my loan officer licensing exam. What we decided to do very early on was to map out a financial game plan for us as people that are unmarried and then for being married. One thing that we both really agreed on was that we do want to build a real estate portfolio. So before we were even engaged, we mapped out a plan. And this is exactly what we did. We mapped out a plan to where both of us would buy our own respective homes before getting married. That means that no matter what happens with us, we each have our own properties. So we both got our own properties in our own names before getting engaged or getting married. So the plan was that once we got married, we would convert both properties into investment properties and then buy a home together that we really like and continue to build our real estate portfolio. I honestly think that was the best decision we've ever made. We followed through with our plan. My husband actually ended up getting 2 properties. I got my property. We recently moved into one of his properties. He Airbnbs the other and I rent out my house. So we were able to come into the marriage with asset, with something not only that we're building together, but something for ourselves should anything happen. I think this was the smartest decision that we have ever made and it's worked out great. It's a way for both of us to have passive income. We always know we're gonna have income coming in no matter what happens with our jobs. I love that we have that and we can just keep building our real estate portfolio. So I went from the girl that was like, I'm not buying a house until I get a husband, to I'm buying a house and I'm super passionate about it and I want everybody to buy houses. Okay, so I'm gonna switch into lender mode and give you my opinion. Should you buy a house before you're married or wait till after? I think if you're able to buy a house before you get married, that is the way to go, even as a woman. I always thought that it's just better for me to wait, but waiting is not going to be good for anyone in this market. If you're a woman or if you're a man and it's something that you're interested in building a real estate portfolio, then I definitely think you should buy before marriage. If you are someone who just wants a house with your husband or your wife and a picket fence and you're not worried about building any wealth through real estate or getting investment property, then I say you can wait until after marriage. And I say this because if you wait till after you're married and you're buying the home together, you have a lot more flexibility because you're dealing with two incomes. It just makes it a lot easier. When a lender sees an application, when there's two borrowers, it actually strengthens the application because it mitigates risk. It's less risk to the lender. So I'm gonna break down 3 questions or factors you wanna take into account before buying a house. There is 3 questions you wanna ask yourself. The first is, do you have the financial ability? There's no point in arguing over should you buy a house before or after marriage if you don't have the finances. Is it going to be feasible for you to buy a house before marriage? Is it going to leave you house poor? Are you going to be having to pay a bunch of repairs and extra expenses that you didn't before? Think about what your financial capacity is alone as a single person, not taking into account anyone else. Are you able to buy a house and live comfortably? Are you able to cover all your payments comfortably? Do you have a little nest egg in case anything goes wrong? That's the first thing you need to decide. Am I financially able to buy a house before marriage? If so, then that may be an option for you. The second question you want to ask yourself is, what are my financial goals for marriage? The decisions that I made and my husband made were based on the goals that we had being married. We knew that once we were married, we wanted to start building a real estate portfolio. So we took the necessary steps to do that in advance. And so that once we're married, we can continue to do that. So figure out what your financial goals are within marriage. Do you guys want to have rental property? Do you want to have a starter home and then build up? Do you want to just wait and save and get the house of your dreams? There's so many things to take into account. Money is a big factor in marriage and in if that marriage lasts. And so I think looking at your financial goals for marriage is good, not only for real estate, but really just in general. Try to determine what you want for yourself when you're married. And if you're seriously dating someone or you're engaged to be married, definitely sit down and have a talk with your significant other on what their goals are and figure out how to combine them. That's gonna guide you to know if you should buy a home before getting married or if you should wait until after you're married. And the third question or thing you want to take into account is logistics. When you get married, there's a lot of logistics in terms of changing your name, moving in together if you don't already live together, combining your finances. There is so much. You also have to consider, what city am I going to live in? What school district do I want my kids to go to? How close is this to where I work? All those things take into account the logistics, because when it's just yourself, you don't have to worry about long-term what those decisions are going to mean. But if you're going to marry someone, then you do have to start thinking about, like, are we going to build a family? How many rooms are we going to need? Are we going to be sending our kids to private school? So maybe we'll have to get a smaller house. There's just so many things you have to think of. Think of logistics. Are you marrying someone that travels a lot? If you're marrying someone that travels a lot, or you're military, you're going to have to move a lot or whatever, you probably are not wanting to buy a house before you get married. If you buy a house, you possibly have to abandon it and move. But these are all things you have to think of. If you do buy a property before marriage and you get married and you end up having to move, do you have the ability to still manage that property where it is, or will you have to sell it? These are all things that you have to think about. So really look at the logistics before you decide. So my personal opinion is that as a woman, you should absolutely get property before you get married. It's something that you will always have for yourself, always have somewhere to go no matter what happens, and it's a way to have passive income. I fully recommend it, and I think it is so smart. From a lender perspective, I think you should really focus more on finance and use that to determine if you want to buy a house before or after marriage. I hope that was helpful and gave you guys some perspective on if you should go for marriage or mortgage. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you can be a part of the Honeybee fam. Hit the bell button so you can get notified when I upload a video. I respond to all comments and questions the first 24 hours. So make sure you have that bell button clicked so that I can make sure I can respond to your question or your comment. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you to the bank and back, and I will see you in my next video.